call the order the February 10, 2016 meeting of the Southborough School Committee. First order of business, audience sharing. Anyone? Okay, moving right along to new business. We have none. So we'll move right along again to old business.
Check.
Legislative update. We've been seeing our legislators recently, frequently.
Recently and frequently. The last 2 weeks has certainly been a wonderful opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue with our legislative team in a variety of settings, and also our very own Commissioner of Education, who was present at the Rennie Center conference. In your packets, or actually in front of you, I distributed the handouts that were part of 2 of the events that we attended. And at each event, there was an opportunity to hear from our legislative team on a variety of issues, and also from the Rennie Center. The presentation really provided an overview in terms of where the Commonwealth was headed in terms of various educational opportunities. And I think the one thing that came through loud and clear from all of the presenters that were there that morning, a very powerful morning, well spent in Boston, and Kathleen was present, was how much of an emphasis the state is placing on social emotional learning. And that in fact that is a tremendous focus for the work that we're going to do both in our district, as we've talked about throughout the budget process and as part of each school improvement plan, but also at the state level as well. So it was a very informative morning, and had an opportunity to speak with the commissioner about a couple of the initiatives that we're concerned about. One, of course, as all districts are concerned about, where the state testing might be headed. And as we talked about last month at school committee, there are 12 various workshops trying to all convene at a point at which next year there will be a final assessment. And also had an opportunity to speak with him about some of the governor's budget items, or specifically grant funding around kindergarten and those kinds of initiatives. So I don't know if Kathleen would like to add anything about the Rennie Center. I will share that this will be a focus of our work with our administrative team this year. We're going to be spending some time talking about instructional practices in the district, and the workshop really did have a focus on how those social emotional learning strategies can be effectively incorporated into the classroom as part of everyday instruction. So it's a very exciting opportunity and very timely for us. Really encapsulates one of our goals and one of our missions as a leadership team.
Yes, it's also a great opportunity to talk to other school committee members, legislators, just people who are in the audience, not only up on the panel. And it's just a great opportunity to share ideas and themes and commonalities.
We were also in attendance at really, I think, something that started in Southborough, which is the borough's economic summit last year, led by many of our town officials, and again sponsored by Merrick O'Connell, attorneys at law, last year in Southborough. And I think that was sort of a culmination of the great work that they had been doing with Northeastern University and other affiliates around where are we headed as a Metro West and as a town, and what does the economic forecast look like for the upcoming decades, and how important education plays a role in the development of this area. This year, they expanded the South Borough as being the only borough, and included the Borough Plus Summit, inviting Marlborough, Westborough, Northborough, and the plus is Hudson and Hopkinton to join in the conversation. And I felt the focus was really how can we transport and make this wonderful geographic region accessible for those who are commuting elsewhere and for those who are commuting into our region as well. And so a lot of information was shared, a great panel of folks in the community sharing thoughts about where we're headed, and Lieutenant Governor Polito always does an amazing presentation, and she did not disappoint at that time as well. She highlighted sort of a quick summary of the accomplishments of the Baker Polito administration this past year, and reminded us all that the same day they were dealing with the T, so with the snowstorm, so it was great they incorporated transportation into the conversation. But really how, again, education plays a very important and vital role in making Metro West a popular place to be, to live, to educate, and to grow. So that was a great presentation as well. I don't know. And the three chairs. It sounds like a group, a singing group, but it isn't. It's the chairs of all three of our committees that comprise the district were present. And Paul was there as well. So it was another great informative session. And in your packet is also the copy of the materials from that presentation. And last, but certainly not least, and a little bit more local, every year an annual event that everyone really looks forward to attending, the legislative breakfast. I think over 500, was it over 500 people? 250 people were at that session.
I don't think 500.
No, it was Saturday night scale, but 250 people were at the chamber breakfast. And you know, it's educators, it's business leaders, it's public and private sector agencies coming together to have a conversation about how we can continue to collaborate and work together for the good of everyone in this area. And everyone, Carolyn Dykema, Representative Dykema, Senator Chandler, Senator Moore, Representative Kane, Representative Gregoire, was this year part of the legislative panel, talked about any issue that folks wanted to talk about, and then also addressed some of the items in the governor's budget and other topics of interest. So it was a good session, and Kathleen was in attendance that as well.
That was
Get the perfect attendance record.
well, you know me, I'm a brown noser.
No,
No, that was really fascinating because all of the legislators from, you know, basically all the Corridor 9 cities and towns were all there together, and it was actually like, it wasn't a debate so much as, but it actually did turn into that at times, but it was also just I think, you know, like a legislator would say, well, I think this, and this is because, you know, like Harry Chandler would say, in Worcester we have blah. And then somebody else would say, well, you know, I agree with a lot of what she said, but, you know, in my district the problem is really this. And so it was really interesting to sort of see that whole spectrum of differences of opinions, and, you know, not that anyone's right or wrong, it's just it's different depending on which town you represent.
right, it's a perspective.
Yeah.
And your constituents.
Absolutely.
What they do is they thank you all for attending.
What?
Thank you guys for attending.
Thank you for that update. Now the Superintendent's Curriculum Advisory Committee update.
Yes, we had an outstanding presentation by our new Director of Student Support Services, Marie Allen, and she was accompanied by our Assistant Directors, Suzanne Morneau and Deb Lemieux. And the topic for the second Superintendent's Curriculum Advisory Committee meeting was the changing landscape of special education. And so many of folks around the table this evening were in attendance. I think for one of our afternoon sessions, it was very well attended, wonderful questions about the services we provide in the district. I think Marie is ready to address the contents because you prepared the PowerPoint, and that really demonstrated, I think, to the folks there that day how much and how in-depth that programming is for special needs students in our community, and how really through innovative programming, really proactive identification of needs, and really engagement of the greater school community, the teachers and staff, not just special ed but regular ed as well, work to create programs that enable us to keep our students in district. That's first and foremost where we want them to be. They're, you know, community members, and the goal is always to keep as many of our students close by and educate them in our own schools. And I think the array and the variety of programming that Marie was able to share and talk about really speaks to how much and how proactive we are around that. Certainly there is there are educational benefits, and first and foremost, it's best for students, but also it allows us to really create reasonable budgets, like the one we'll be able to look at again tonight. So, Marie, do you want to add anything?
Sure. So when we consider the changing landscape, we do have to consider the regulatory practices, but most importantly, we have to think about the learning needs and the trends for our student population coming up. And we have to think about students and programs in terms of building capacity and how does that look at each of the districts. We need to make sure that we support the students in their learning, both academically and socially and emotionally, and what does that look like. So we presented our great student support services staff and all of the folks that help support our students in those realms, and really thinking forward to, you know, the different trends that are happening right now in the mental health realm, and our students on the autism spectrum, and the various different disabilities where we really have to focus and maybe change things up with the population that's coming through the system and the little bubbles that happen, and how do we support those as best we can. So we had conversations around that and detailed that out a little bit. So it was great to present it, and I think you did a nice summary of what all the things that we focused on in that presentation.
The PowerPoint will be on our website
Yes.
for everyone to view. We're just doing some slight editing. So that was on Thursday, the 28th. And on Tuesday, February 2nd, Marie was back out talking about and sharing some news about our programming with respect to extended school year services. And this was a very exciting opportunity for us because we've been working and collaborating with the Northborough Southborough Parent Advisory Council. And they frequently provide workshops and informational sessions for the greater community. And last year, and maybe a little bit the year before, we really started looking at ways that we can partner with them, but also at the same time at these informational sessions where parents are present, share with that audience what we do as a district. And so this was really the first opportunity, I think, that we co-presented. PAC presented and sponsored the event, but we were actually the guest presenters, which is a little bit new for us. So this is the first, and we're hoping that we do more of it because I think it does send a very strong message that we do work with our Parent Advisory Council very collaboratively, and we have much to be proud of in terms of what we do in district. And I would say, again, for a Tuesday night in the winter season, it was a bit nippy out, it was well attended. That evening we received some really great feedback, but then the next morning, PAC, NSPAC, offered their Coffee and Connect session. And they actually have Coffee and Connect sessions once a month. And it just so happened the next day was that session. This year they actually changed their strategy. They offered the first half of meetings in Southborough at the library, and then they moved over to Northborough. So I think that's a change as well because they really want to make themselves available with this news and information and go in both communities to make it more accessible. And so at the Coffee and Connect, I think the previous night was the topic of conversation, and a few folks who attended that session, a few school committee members who happened to be able to be present that day, shared with us that feedback was outstanding. They felt that there was strong collaboration, the information that was shared was very helpful and informative, and actually they are looking forward to a continued positive dialogue. So this is the first time we sort of presented in something they sponsored.
And it's the first year that we did a parent survey at the end of our extended services school year, and we were able to provide that feedback in a data format to the parents, and we listened to their concerns, and we've changed up programming in response to some of their concerns, and I think that they valued that, and they affirmed that they valued that at the meeting, so it was good.
And our third in the series of 4 curriculum advisory committee meetings will be held in March, and Greg, Mr. Martineau, plays a very, very important role in helping to set the agenda and getting presenters for the meetings. So I'm going to let Greg tell us the exciting news about our next curriculum advisory meeting in March.
So we're fortunate to have Alan November, who's a worldwide speaker on the topic of technology, speak about parenting in the digital age. So I will be attending with my parent hat on. He'll be presenting to the SCAC from 3:30 to 4:30, and then he'll be working with invited school committee members from 4:30 to 5:30. And then it will be open to the community from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at Algonquin Regional High School. And he'll be presenting some tips and tricks and fielding some questions. So we're excited about that event.
That was a good format for us when Dr. Owens came to town and, opened it up to other sort of school committee members in neighboring districts. I think Shrewsbury attended the start time presentation, so we'll probably be extending that same invitation to school committees and have that informal session just for committee members to ask questions before the presenter meets with the parents. So that seemed to work well in November. Seems like it was yesterday, or a year ago, but it was in November, and we'll be doing the same format this time as well.
Well, the new technology director has started by then.
March 14th, same day.
Same day.
Welcome to the district.
We're going to tip him off to that.
We have your evening plan.
Oh, you have a question? Why don't you ask our technology director?
I would like to say it was strategic, but it happened by good luck on this occasion. So.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody to check out that PowerPoint from Marie's presentation that the curriculum subcommittee is really good. And the one that got me was, I don't know, it must have been two dozen different programs that you had on there, and some of them from outside providers, which I thought was good. Seemed like very judicious use of outside providers to provide real specialized services. So
Great.
it was quite enlightening.
You said you were finishing some things up, so when do you think you'll actually have that being available?
The hope is we'll be able to have it on the website before we leave for vacation, February vacation, so the parents will have a chance to view it. We're also going to add the extended school year services PowerPoint, which was equally informative. We just have some minor editing to do for prepare for presentation for the public consumption, and we'll be hopefully having that up on Friday. It will be in the February district doings with the links as well to the website, so we'll make it even more accessible to parents and not just be able to
Very good. I think that brings us to the fiscal 16 budget, which we need to vote to accept.
Yes, the financial report for January 31st, 2016 is in your packet. There are no significant variances, right, Cheryl, to report this month, and a vote to accept until audited is requested and appreciated.
Kathleen?
I move to accept the financial report from January 31st, 2016 until audited.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. And brings us to the facilities maintenance capital plan.
We are very pleased to have Dave White join us this evening. Dave, as we know, is a facilities manager extraordinaire in the Southborough School District, and he will actually speak to the items that are part of this evening's 2017 facilities maintenance capital plan. I want to make note that this plan was reviewed by our subcommittee, our capital planning committee subcommittee, and he's here to speak to that information.
Thank you. We have a very environmentally friendly two-sided, which is great. I was confused at the beginning because I wasn't very good at that.
I gave him 2 sheets.
But the spreadsheet piece of it is just kind of a look ahead through the years of things that we know we're going to be dealing with at some point or another. Just the order of magnitude, so we understand, the gravity of these things when they do, come about, whenever that may be. So then what we do is sanitize that on an annual basis and pick the priorities and things that need to get done. As we look at this year, we're planning on purchasing motorized bleacher movers for the bleachers at the Trotter and the Penn schools. It's a strong recommendation from our insurance company. We've never had them before, but it is a strong recommendation, and so we are working very hard to source the right ones. You know, there are several out there, but we really want to find the right ones. And not just satisfy the insurance company, but also to make sure that we're buying something that we can use and be satisfied with for a long time. So we're working on that as we speak, and will be finalized very soon. At Trotter, the cafeteria floor really is in pretty bad repair. I mean, it needs to be changed. You know, as many of you know that have been around for a while, there have been moisture problems in the slabs in this building. That area is the next area that really needs to be addressed, and there may be one or two small areas after this, but that's really the big area. And what we'll do is remove the old floor. We use a moisture mitigation process, which then seals the moisture so it can't come up anymore, and it's trapped below. It's basically an epoxy type of system. And then the plan is to put a really nice Mimoleum product on, which is you know, very few seams, and we're engaging a designer so we can, you know, have something that when it's done looks very aesthetically pleasing, that we can incorporate the school colors and have it be something when the kids go there for their dance lessons and other community events in the gym, in the cafeteria, that, you know, it's very functional and looks nice. And the new floors that were coming out nowadays, these Mimoleum products, don't require wax. So you just scrub them and wash them thoroughly, and you know, so you don't have to wax them. So, you know, long term it's a lower maintenance issue. So that's something we plan on doing over the summer. We do have some collaboration, and you know, I mean, I have to say that, you know, in Southborough there's great collaborations between community, schools, you know, various organizations. And one of the collaborative efforts that's happening this year is, you know, in the auditorium several years ago, through some other collaborations, some generous donations, we put a real state-of-the-art sound system in the auditorium. I'm sure people at town meeting and stuff really appreciate the fact that it's a much better sound system. So we're looking now at upgrading the lighting system for theatrical, you know, plays and stuff that go on, band concerts and that sort of thing. And so again, with some collaboration with the Southborough Cable Access TV, you know, we're really looking at upgrading the lighting in there. And as money is available, you know, we're doing a comprehensive plan. That's kind of a shopping list, so we can put the head end in and kind of add to it over time. You know, possibly some really, you know, good presentation system as well. So again, town meeting flows much more easily, and any other opportunities to use the gym for those purposes. So, you know, it's something we'll at least have in the future, so we're building a system that can accept a multitude of other things.
I think when we met, we kind of like that idea that we're looking at, we might not have the money to do it all right now, but we're really looking ahead saying, what do we need in an auditorium down the road, and let's at least get the infrastructure in place that we can do that stuff later. So I think that's great, as opposed to just piecemealing it. So,
you know, I think in a lot of these technological areas, as far as the important thing is, I'm really surprised that I said that word without stumbling over it. But we're able to put in a head-end system in a lot of different areas that then we can build on. And you know, buy high-end technology to start with, and then over time expand on it. And that's the plan here, is to put that, you know, strong head in first, and then see where we can go from there. And you know, we continue to have roofing issues. You know, it is what it is, and you know, with any of the issues that come up, we really attack them aggressively. And if we have any roof leaks, we call the roofer immediately. We don't allow leaks to happen and stay with us. There is so we have some $25,000 here at Trotter. The HVAC system for the auditorium is on the roof. The ductwork that goes to the HVAC system is on the roof. And the insulation around that ductwork was leaking. The water was infiltrating the ductwork and then making its way down into the room. What we did is we completely ripped all the insulation off, put brand new rigid insulation on, which is significantly superior to what we had, and then wrapped it with rubber membrane roofing. So it's a, you know, permanent, long-term solution. And the benefit there is, number one, roof leaks, but it's also going to give us more efficiency in the HVAC system, because when you get wet insulation, the heat transfer through that is quite dramatic. And in the wintertime, it gets really cold, and in the summertime, it gets really hot. So, we've really improved that situation there energy-wise. So we've done that already because it was really needed, and we found a good couple of days 2 weeks ago and got it done. Going to Neary, we have completed the, 3 or 4 year plan that we had of doing major roof repairs, and that roof is pretty darn good right now. But again, there's always little things that come up, and, so when they come up, you have to deal with them. So we've got a few dollars to accommodate that. And one thing at Neary School, Neary is a beautiful elementary school, in my opinion. I just love the building. But it doesn't have the amenities that a lot of these newer buildings have. So, we'd really like to start doing some upgrades to Neary to just, give it whatever pop we can, where we can. And actually, over February vacation, we're going to be putting new carpeting in the Learning Center. Just because what's there now just needs to be replaced. And, the plan is moving forward. The main office, when you come in again, I think that it's the first foot, it's the first place people see, and would like to upgrade the carpeting in there, and then we need to do the library as well. And again, when we do these things, we're really looking at doing it with the right products instead of just throwing something down. We're using a good high-end carpet tile that if something gets stained, you just pull one tile up and you put something from your attic sock down, and it looks brand new again. But we did that over at the Finn main office several years ago, and it's beautiful. It wears well, and it always looks good, and if you have to change something, there's no pattern, there's nothing, it's beautiful stuff. So that's what we're going to do at Neary, and hopefully, just kind of brighten it up a little bit. Some of the things that didn't really make the cut this year, but we have to keep on the agenda is the parking lot at Neary is just, we've repaired catch basins several times, but there's a lot of cracking and a lot of, pothole issues and stuff that we'd like to deal with. As beautiful as Neary is as an elementary school, it's an older building. It is drafty in places at times, and even though it may be warm temperature-wise, the draft makes it feel cooler. So at some point, we'd like to do some weatherization work there and tighten up some of those problems. And throughout the building, many of you remember probably 6-7 years ago, we put all new unit ventilators in classrooms, and the boilers were done over, and all of that was really done well. Some of the components that were left behind, some unit ventilators in hallways and stuff, were not replaced at that time. And some of them were a little bit loud, and so we're going to need to look at taking those and starting to replace them, because the mechanical devices, a lot of moving parts in there, and you can only fix them so many times before you say, it's going to be more cost effective to just replace the damn thing instead of fixing it every 6 months.
I didn't realize we hadn't replaced them all.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time, certainly we try to do things the right way and do them economically as well, and get good value. And it was determined at that time by the engineer that they could stay. But I think that to the point now that we probably need to look at replacing them. So again, it's on the list, and it's something that we're going to continue to work towards, just not this year. And the other thing over at Neary is, the modulars. The modulars have served this district extremely well. They've been there for a very long time.
They're beloved.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure that some people really love them. But the outside of them is really looking dated, and really, it just is dated. And I think that to the extent that we need to continue to use them, I think that we need to do a little bit of work outside to make them represent what we want. When people drive up and they look at it, they're looking at us. And I think that to the extent that we can do something there in the coming year or two to give it a fresher look would be appropriate. We get to the Finn school, we have the same motorized bleacher issue over at Finn. We have a split air conditioner in one of the server rooms that we've had trouble with on multiple occasions, and it's probably to the point that is at its life expectancy, and it will be more cost effective again to replace that versus dealing with it. And again, in the server room, we just don't want it to go down, especially on a 95-degree summer day, and then start losing computer equipment. So we've got some money for that. And as I mentioned earlier, the collaborative efforts we're looking at doing to the gym floor at Finn, what we did here at Trotter several years ago, and sand it down to natural maple and refinishing the entire floor. And Southborough Youth Basketball and Recreation have agreed to work with us on that project to help us share some of the expense. And you know, I know that the Trotter gym really came out very nice. I think that a lot of people really appreciate the look of it now, and we intend to have the same look at Finn when we're done. So, and then lastly, over at the Woodward School, of course, it's, you know, one of the newest in the fleet, and it was, you know, built very nicely. It's a very nice, you know, simple building, but very functional. And, you know, so there isn't a lot of stuff going wrong at the Woodward School, but we do, you know, need to do a little bit of painting, a little bit of freshening up from time to time. So we, we'll try to carry a little bit of money in to do some of that work. And that's pretty much all that I have.
Very good.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I was trying to correlate the plan priority list with the actual overall capital plan, I guess 8 years here. And I guess I'm presuming that priority means sooner than later. There are 2 items. You mentioned the parking lot at Neary and the weatherization at Neary, which are in the list of fiscal year 2018 on the plan. But you actually made special note of those 2, even though they didn't make the cut. I think you said so, not going to be 17. So so you made special note of this, I presume, because of the items that are sitting out there in 2018. The fact that these 2 didn't make it is probably the more serious items that didn't make it. The other ones weren't as big a concern.
I would say that that's a
Is that
very
fair?
accurate statement.
Okay.
I think that's accurate.
That's kind of, I get it. Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank Dave for his thorough analysis of the needs of the buildings, and also recognize the input from the building principals in prioritizing this document, but also the work of Cheryl Levesque as business manager. She works the money and has many conversations with Dave before this list even moves to subcommittee. Going through and having many conversations about, you know, where our facilities are. And as I'm sure we can all agree, all of that collaboration results in schools where our students feel comfortable and parents feel proud to have their students attend. So just wanted to recognize those folks in the process as well.
You know, and I also want to thank Dave and all of the staff for the great job all of you've done keeping these buildings up over the years, okay? It's, every year it's the same process. You know, I walk through, I look at the schools, and everything from my perspective is really up to where it should be. So I just want to thank all of you.
That's appreciated. I think that I've said it before, that we're very fortunate that we have a good group of committed, dedicated employees. The custodians that work in these buildings, they do care about the buildings, they care about the town, they love the kids, and they put a lot of effort into doing the best job that they can. And so we're very fortunate that we have them, because they're independent workers, they go out and get their job done, and keep things looking good, and so we're very fortunate to have a dedicated staff.
Agreed.
I'll second some of those comments that, you know, I've been here 4.5 years or so, and have yet to see a big dramatic problem with any of our buildings, and I think that speaks to your preventive maintenance plan working very well, so well done.
But I think also what we need to, you know, looking at a few years, there's some bigger ticket items on
Yeah.
here when it gets to be a boiler or, you know, boiler at Finn or a roof, windows at Neary, stuff like that. But that, we kind of do this from what we've had a plan of. We pay for, not we, but the school committee pays for this through our revolving rent accounts, through the rent for the central office and the rent for extended day goes into a revolving account. And we keep this external to asking the town for money. Where if you go through our budget, we really don't have a capital line item in our budget. When we get to those items, our little rent account every year, $100,000 a year isn't gonna cover that, and that's where we're gonna, I know there's a townwide capital plan and such like that.
And this is incorporated into it,
Exactly.
so they're very aware of what's in the
Exactly.
pipeline.
Right, so Dave's been really working with them, but those are the things that we can't cover as a group sitting across this table without going to the town for. But I will say that it's been many years since we've done something along
Yep.
those lines, so, which is good. We've been trying our best to maintain our schools within our budget, so. Great job coordinating both the resources and the staff. I know that the coordination of the summer and the staff, I think, has just been wonderful over the past couple of years to really get the schools in shape, so. Anyway, just thought I'd bring that up.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Brings us to fiscal 17 budget priorities, which
Budget priorities have not
are
changed.
have not changed.
So we got voted earlier this year,
Shocking.
and they serve as guiding principles for the work that we do preparing our FY17 budget. The budget calendar continues to be,
I think I forgot to vote
Vote?
to accept the
thank you.
maintenance plan.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
I'll make a motion.
Why not?
All right, I'm gonna make a motion, we accept the school facilities maintenance plan.
For
Second.
Fiscal 17.
So are we saying the plan, or are we saying plan priorities? What are we accepting?
Plan priorities.
Okay.
Plan priorities, yes, thank you.
Second, there's going to be somebody did already.
All right, so moved by Mary Beth, seconded by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor? And it's unanimous. Now we can move on to the budget priorities, which haven't changed, and budget calendar, which has changed.
Which has
a little bit.
changed a little bit. We have secured a date to meet with Southborough Financial Advisory. This is something that we do each and every year, typically after the budget is approved by school committee. And the date for our presentation
At the
is
moment?
at the moment. It has changed several times, and we're very, very confident that this date might be the last. I'm confident that it might be the last, but it's Monday, March 7th, at the senior center in town, and we will follow the Algonquin budget, which follows Assabet Valley. So K-8 will be last in the sequence, just to try to accommodate everyone's busy schedules. So the thought
Maybe they'll
is,
be tired.
retired,
Oh, yeah, that's great.
flying in from someplace that evening. And so hopefully we'll be on at about 8:30. Algonquin's budget will probably somewhere around 8 p.m. from what they suggested at this point. So looking forward to the presentation.
So I have on my calendar on the 7th, we have the 21st Century Learning and Technology presentation at Pryor Middle School. Wow. Sorry, my phone just did something wild.
It's the 14th, right? The digital learning presentation.
Is that the
is
digital
14th.
learning? Do I just have it on the wrong date? Okay.
It was originally scheduled for the 7th,
Okay,
and
that's,
because of Mr. November's plans,
Okay.
we moved it to the 14th.
okay, so that's that, and that is moved. Excellent.
So happily, and I don't think Mr. November changed because of the change in the financial advisory committee,
We could pretend.
we could suggest again, that was purposeful, but it
How
wasn't.
do you change it so that he'd be there when our new technology director was?
That's right, he did. And that was not planned either, but it all falls into place, which is great news.
Have you met with your meeting of selectmen and Brian Valentine and Mark Purple, sort of that group?
Financial working
A
group?
while back.
Yeah, we met
Okay.
November once this year, and
I
it's
think it was before
somewhere,
the new year, wasn't
it
it?
was, and
I was
it
going to
was
say before the holidays.
before the holidays. I think the date's on the budget calendar, and it probably was around late October. I seem to remember, early November.
December 1st, according to our calendar here.
Well,
there
there
one
you
before
go.
that?
That's why we have a calendar. Meeting with Southborough
There
Finance.
could have been one before
I
that,
think,
too.
yeah, there was an early morning one that we met with Mr. Purple and some of his department heads.
Yeah,
And
that's
we've
the
met
time.
with Mark and his department heads. In fact, we have a meeting on Friday.
Oh, okay.
as well. So there have been
So-
probably 3 or 4 meetings.
So we've gotten some
We've
feedback
gotten
since
some
we
feedback.
last voted the budget. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So we're looking forward to the presentation on, as of tonight, March 7th. Which brings us to the budget. And what you have in front of you this evening may look very much like what was presented last month when we discussed at length the preliminary budget and all of the factors that went into the budget planning for the FY 2017 budget. There is a slight change. The cover has moved from preliminary to recommended, and in reality, that's all that has changed since our last meeting. I would really like to suggest that it's the great work that goes into preparing the budget. A lot of the variables that oftentimes impact the budget between preliminary and recommended, like staffing changes and perhaps the student service needs landscape, whether it be in transportation or tuition, has remained constant. And so the budget that we had presented at that time has not changed from preliminary to recommended. So at this point, what I would like to request is that the school committee entertain a vote to accept the superintendent's recommended budget, and that budget represents a $19,401,863 million budget for FY 2017, and that results in a 2.61% increase above the 2016 budget. And so that's a lot of numbers, so I'm going to quickly move to the slide so that it's a little bit more visible to the audience. And so that's really what the budget looks like for, that was a good start of the day, for next year. It's $492,000 increase. As we discussed when we talked about the preliminary budget last month at length, a significant portion of that $492,000 is represented by the increase in contractual obligations this year. It's 2%, and that represents the third year. Next year will be the third year of our 3-year contract.
When you turned away, what did you say, how many percent? 2% of the 2.61%?
2%, we have a
Or
2%.
the 2% increase from.
And roughly 60% of that number is salaries. So we have shared, to some extent, the conversations around our budget process with the town and feel confident that we're, again,
That's
continuing our
sure
real
that it's
partnership
done.
and our collaboration with the town.
Just so I'm not confused, 60% of that 2.61% number is salaries?
60%
No.
of the 492,863 represents the
Okay.
increase in salary.
Contractual.
Right. Okay.
Contractual. That's
So,
definitely.
so a question which isn't necessarily directly relevant, but related. So, are you to the point where there's a recommended, is it public, is there anything public as far as the recommended regional budget increase in the Southborough share yet? No.
No.
So that's still determined?
We will hopefully vote the recommended regional budget on February 24th, but we're still meeting in subcommittee, regional operational budget subcommittee.
Do we know what the Southborough share percentage-wise will be in that budget yet? Not that we don't know the number.
In terms of enrollment,
Right, is it going up or down?
the swing was a 1.5% increase on the Northborough side for enrollments. So I think Northborough's, Southborough's is a 41.61% of enrollment, I believe. And Northborough share is about 58.6. So it's a 1.5, there's a 1.5% change in enrollment, and that's on the Northborough side. So I think the decrease in population in Southborough was 17 students.
And then there was an increase of Northborough
Northborough,
students, so
right.
it was.
So that was this one. And as we know, or as I'm quickly learning, to a great extent, and I know we're not talking about regional budget this evening, but
It impacts us.
It does impact.
Southborough looks at,
right.
I mean, we've taken a
It's
strategy where we're in schools, you know.
So
So we do need to be conscious, I think, aware, and
Mhm.
That's why I said it wasn't directly relevant, but
But it
nonetheless, it's
is.
related.
it's related because
So the factors this year that really have impacted the budget for either Northborough or Southborough is really the enrollment shifts and then the change in minimum local contribution. And to some extent, neither of those factors are within our control. As well as we know, Chapter 70, which saw a very slight increase this year at the regional level. And so we're looking forward to presenting the budget on the 24th. And I guess the shift is in favor of Southborough this year.
It is.
Because of those changes in the minimum local contribution and the increase, change in enrollment. And as we look at that chart that we put up on the screen each year when we're presenting to the regional budget, the shifts in each year really are impacted by those two factors, whether it's an enrollment or a minimum local contribution change. And as you look through that change in any given year, beyond our control in terms of how the assessments are calculated with those two numbers, whether it's minimum local contribution or the the regional agreement that incorporates the enrollment shifts, it's a swing either way. And oftentimes it comes down to just looking at those numbers and crunching them and see how that's going to go in each given year.
Great. So back to the K-8 budget. We went through this whole presentation last month, so if anybody wants to see the whole presentation, you can roll the tape from then, I guess, but I didn't see a need to go through that again tonight. So I guess
We need a vote.
we need a motion to accept the fiscal 17 recommended budget. Sorry, that?
Okay, I make a motion to accept the superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2017 budget for the Southborough Public Schools.
Do you want to have the number of
Oh.
$19,401,863?
All right. Motion from Mary Beth, seconded by Kathleen. Any further discussion?
So, if we haven't met with any people from the town, so we'll vote the recommended budget and then we'll have our hearing next March.
March 9th.
And March 9th, okay. So if we
We also,
really did need to change things, we still could.
2 days to change.
Yeah.
have time. Or even prior to
Right, town meeting.
town meeting.
Okay.
But, gotcha. Okay. So, no question.
Anything else? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
First of all, really feeling. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who participated in the process. Wonderful budget season. If the budget
I was
season
just
would be
gonna say.
wonderful, I don't know.
Okay.
Again, my definition of wonderful.
Right. All right.
Has Assabet come in yet? Has Assabet come in as far as a budget recommendation?
Not that I'm aware of. I think Assabet's
They're
down.
first on the agenda.
They're first on the agenda that night.
Right, but I mean,
we haven't
but we
seen
don't
them.
know what it is yet.
No.
That's
Not
all,
at this
that's
point.
all enrollment driven too, and I do
I was
not
just
believe
gonna
that
say.
their enrollments,
So
if
enrollment
anything,
driven.
they've gone down.
Right. I think that we learned that the other day when we were in one of our meetings that their enrollment has gone down, but
The enrollments for Southborough or enrollments?
And
in general?
enrollments are our next
Southborough.
topic. Again, they're in your packets.
Right, I do want to make a note of one update, and as we know, this number is subject to change, and as it does from month to month. And what we have done in terms of the enrollment projection is really identify the number of registered students for kindergarten, which is 113, but we so noted how many packets were actually distributed, which still can drive up that number and most likely will as we approach the end of the year. But we did want to, because we were discussing budget this evening and so forth, represent on this enrollment the actual number of registered students as of today. And again, you'll see, and I know Jim is still feeling fairly confident that number will increase.
Yeah, those numbers should continue to increase.
Right.
Well, it's very early, I mean, it's just February.
It's
right?
it's still
Right.
very early, yeah.
Right.
And the packets go to anyone with a kindergarten age child?
Yes, it goes to anyone who's on the census of a child who's at kindergarten age, but some of those people may have moved. Some
Right.
people choose not to send their child if they were a late birthday.
Yep.
So there's a variety of reasons why the numbers could shift, but we did get 28 calls, that's part of that 148. So some of that we know, some of our incoming are new move-ins to the town, so.
Well, and
A lot of flexibility.
if you just moved in and you're not really in tune to other stuff, you don't even know that you're supposed to be registering for
Right.
kindergarten.
Right.
No. So, because it's February, you're thinking, no.
So we're going to update this number to reflect actual registrations for month to month as we progress through the rest of the year.
Okay. All right. Educational policy, none at this time. Policy development, distribution, none at this time. Personnel items, we have a few.
That's in your packets as well. One, I read the retirement, want to make note of that. Dorothy Wade has been with us for a number of years, worked in several of our schools, and she will be retiring at the end of this year as well. So we wish her all the best.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Communication, let's see, the district duties are in the packet.
I did, last month, folks wanted me to send this to you because some are not on the school distribution list, which means you're not getting snow on calls either. I'd be happy to add that to that if you'd like.
I was gonna say, could you put me on the emails?
Emails, one, snow cancellations, but hopefully you're receiving that.
That's nice.
And then action on minutes from January meeting. We need a vote on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve the Southborough School Committee meeting, school committee open meeting minutes of Wednesday, January 13th, 2016.
Second.
Motion from Jerry, seconded by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Bills and payrolls are forthcoming. Agenda items for next month. We've got the public hearing on the budget.
Public hearing on the 9th. Updating on financial advisory, meeting on the 7th. Right. And there's information shared. We will not have yet had our curriculum, so we'll have to save that to advisory meeting. We'll have to share that in April, as well as Alan November's, but just, a reminder that I think it's going to be a wonderful evening, and we'll remind everyone through the February and March district doings. So hopefully everybody will be able to come out and attend that session.
Okay. Anything else? Right. Audience sharing once again. I guess there isn't any.
Dave never felt so important. Everyone looks at Dave and just puts him on the spot right there.
I keep thinking maybe. How about a motion to adjourn then?
Make a motion to adjourn.